Good morning, afternoon, and evening, product people. Thank you so much for joining us today for our third Sochology session. In today's session, we will be discussing API product management. And to do that, we have Sarim Rahman, who is a seasoned product manager with 7 years of experience in B2C, B2B companies like Cheetay and Curatio. He's a passionate technology evangelist at heart, which led to his role as a community manager at Google Business Group, Karachi. Sarim currently works as a PM at Points Canada, one of the largest loyalty solutions for airlines, hotels, and financial services in the region. So we're very glad to have him on board with us today. Before we begin this session, just wanted to mention a few housekeeping rules. Please keep your mic off during the session. Please wait till the end to ask questions as we have a dedicated slot for that. And please hold your questions till the end of the presentation. We'll be happy to get to those. So, Sarim, we're honored and thrilled to have you with us today and really looking forward to your insights. Please, the stage is all yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining in. My name is Sarim Rahman, and today we will be talking about API product management, API management, and the role of a product manager in an API ecosystem. So, before we begin, a bit about me, who I am, what I've been doing. So, as the host mentioned, that I have been doing product management for over 7 years. I've worked in multiple industries, including mobility, e-commerce, payments, and health tech. And for the last couple of years, I've been focusing and working on platform and API product management. And today I will be talking about API product management, API economy, and the lessons I've learned throughout my career. So that's the plan we'll be talking about. Moving on, so the basic and the first question comes in our mind when we talk about API product management. What is the API? So to begin with, I will ask what is an API. We all have some sort of understanding of what is an API. So I took an example which everyone can relate to. So in this scenario, you can see we have three actors: the user, the waiter, and the kitchen, the chef. So in this scenario of a restaurant, uh, you are the API customer, the one sending the request for the service or data, and your waiter is the API, the data messenger or the delivery mechanism for you in this example. You can't go to the kitchen directly or order directly from the chef. You have to send a request through the waiter. The waiter takes your order and take it to you, the kitchen, and then transports back the data or service, in this case your food, your lunch or dinner, whatever you're having, from the kitchen. So over here in this example, the menu from which you will be ordering is the documentation, which tells you what you can order, what you can ask from the API. And the kitchen is the API server. It supplies the service or the data, yet it only has certain set of data sets. Just like if you go to a vegan restaurant, you cannot ask for a meat dish. It won't be on the menu. Or in case of API service, that the documentation won't mention that. And if you try to order it anyways, you will get an error code because the kitchen can't deliver it. And similarly, there are certain secret ingredients for every restaurant or every dish every chef has. So you can get certain data sets, like an answer whether you want to, certain things in your dish and certain ingredients you want to know about the dish you're having. So you won't be able to discover those secret ingredients that makes that soup unique over here or your food unique over here. And you won't be able to get the chef's home address directly. So you have to go to the kitchen via API, via the waiter, which maintains the sensitivity, these sensitive data, the security, and the compliance of the server or the kitchen in this case. Uh, the question over here is why APIs are important. That's the basic thing. And a short answer to this is it makes everyone's life easy. We can take an example of Lego. Uh, we have a Lego system all over the world, and everyone knows the standard procedure of connecting those. So Lego has small stud on the top of them and holes which connect them to the other Lego brick. So you can consider it as an API. It provides a simple and structured way to allow pieces to come together and build different structures or different applications. So similarly, in the softwares, when you connect APIs, they create interesting or new mashups. So at points, we also use a lot of different sets of API, uh, serving different types of clients. So one example I can talk about is one of our big partner, Lyft, where we connected Lyft with Hilton and Alaska Airlines. So we use the same API set connecting two different partners with a Lyft, and now the users can take the ride via Lyft and earn Hilton points or Air Alaska points or Delta points. Similarly, we have done same thing with Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster is one of the largest ticket marketplace in the world. We connected Ticketmaster with the Air France, where you can buy a ticket of any concert and redeem AFKLM or Air France points. Uh, we use different API products on our daily basis. And an API has been around for the last couple of decades. We can talk about how different APIs or different products serve other partners or their partner to their user base. We can talk about over here Uber, one of the very common example. So Uber uses Google Maps for direction and navigation. They use Stripe for the payment purposes, and Tilio for the user authentication or sending the OTP messages to the user for sign up or any verification process. And Uber hosts their infrastructure and platform on Amazon Web Services. So similarly, we use multiple apps which consume different APIs, whether you are checking the atmosphere or the climate. Uh, Google uses weather.com or some other apps use AccuWeather APIs. Similarly, whether you're trying to sign up or sign in any e-commerce store, we have different signing in or sign up options. You can use your existing Google, Twitter, or Facebook accounts. Whether you're trying to check out from an e-commerce store, you have different payment options. You can pay via your credit card, your PayPal account, or more recently, we have a new upcoming way of payment, which is the buy now, pay later mechanism also. Over here, I will mention one of the example I read some time back about how API products were evolved at Amazon. So Jeff Bezos, back in 2002 or three, I don't remember the year exactly, plus or minus 1 or 2 years, Jeff used and issued a mandate that all the product teams require to expose their data and functionality through APIs. Not only that, he insisted that they all the teams have to use or communicate via those APIs, and it was an extreme step intended to promote team autonomy and product agility. So it was few years before the mandate took hold on, but it created an unprecedented platform for growth. As a result of that mandate or that decision, Amazon decomposed its internal infrastructure, provisioning services through web-friendly interfaces, and they were able to launch one of the most successful or the most profitable line of business of Amazon is the AWS, Amazon Web Services. Moving on, so it's in my one of my last company, we used to joke. Our DevOps used to say, "Why did API go to sleep?" Whenever we used to have some downtime or production issue, so the DevOps guy used to say, because it needed some rest. So we have different types of APIs, REST APIs, SOAP APIs, and more recently we have GraphQL as well. Coming into the scene as well. Uh, so when we say about an API product manager, so what are the basic or uh, different elements which make an product manager an API product manager? So I took a famous quotation or a famous definition of a product management from Martin's book Inspire. So a product manager discovers a product that is valuable, usable, and feasible. So what does all these three different instances mean? Having a valuable experience or providing a valuable product, you have to provide a delightful experience to the user. When we say usable product, so that means you have to provide standardized, you know, structures, provide documentation and innovation in your product, which will be serving to your partner or the user base. Feasible, what when we talk about feasible, it addresses the consumption or creating the business impact. So the starting point, when we say how different product management artifacts come together and make a product manager role so key in any organization, are these three main pillars, which every product manager have to find a valuable, a delightful experience, a usable and innovative solution to the partner, and a feasible and a business impactful solution for the user. So on a daily life basis, a user or a product manager juggles around different things, but if you dilute these things, it comes to the three main things for the developers or for the users or for the business is the delightful experience, innovative solutions, and business impact. And you can drive growth or success or adoption or whatever the metrics you are deeply concerned about for the success of that mission. You can always talk about how we can improve those matrices, but to improve those matrices you have to look into a certain direction, how we are making a user or a user-centric application, a user-centric platform, or a customer enlightening, or different kinds of technical ways or insight you are providing to your partner. So the API team should think itself as a refinery, and I would say that the API product managers sits between the raw material, which is housed in the backend, and in the API products, which is the polished interface for the developers, which they can use easily. So when you layer a mature API product mindset on top of your API teams and the core responsibilities, and this all things and the flow will create the digital value chain. Over here, we can see what are the different stages or what it takes to build a different product. So the two key customer whose experience the API team directly impacts, uh, you should focus on their desire and needs. So API team's obsession with customers, developers, and the end user from whom these APIs are created and experienced. So to create an effective value chain, you have to build a minimum viable product and the MVP. So you have to curate a developer, world-class developer experience, and you have to champion the business value of an API. And this process goes on until your API or your product gets mature enough. And that's how you can only add value to your digital value chain. You build something with your team, your API teams does the all the requirement analysis, matrices, and the business vision alignment, and then you pack that particular product and hand it over to the integration partner or the you know your partner API teams, which does the integration along with the developers. And over here, the developers are the forefront or the first interaction you will have with the partner. If your developers are having a wonderful time doing integration with the platform, they don't have to worry about different concepts like what which endpoint will do what, if your documentation, if your API playbooks or the API references are laid out, which means they are clear, simple, and they provide uh, a visual hierarchy to your playbook. If you provide one thing, they will know exactly which part of the product they can access it. They don't have to go back to your documentation every time to call an endpoint or to check how you have implemented certain firewall rules, what is the rate limiting. So these are the different concepts or different things which enhance the developer experience in the API product management. So when we talk about the role of a product manager, and there's one important thing for every product manager is the taking the business and the product requirements. This is something very basic, or the first thing every product manager does. You take the business and the product requirement, and then you put them in a bucket or in your backlog where you do the prioritization of the initiatives. And over here, you talk about and you think how and what are the different best development practices, how you have to maintain different coding standards, how you have to maintain security and compliance standards, what you can share with a partner, what you have to or encrypt, and how you will share the user sensitive data to partner or to any other third party who is using your platform. So maintaining the development best practices, also making sure that all the best practices are kept in the development and used, is also the responsibility of our API product manager. The other thing is having access and the security. What APIs and how APIs will be accessed, whether you will have a sandbox environment or a staging environment, which you will be exposing it to the your partner team, how they will access those testing environments, how you will expose your client keys, client secret keys to your partners in the prod. And similarly for the security, like how you're gonna maintain different passwords, different security practices, whether you will be installing any password vault or password safety manager. You have to consider about the security and compliance also, which includes the different compliance and security standards in different regions. So that includes if you're operating in Europe or in North America, you have to think about the SCO or GDPR. When you are dealing with financial transactions or data, then you have to consider about PACD compliance as well. That depends from industry to industry what kind of industry standards and security that particular domain is following. Also, the product manager needs to be subject matter expert in the API. You have to really technical and understand how your infrastructure works, how your APIs work. So over here, I think there's a bit of a difference if you compare it with the consumer facing or B2C product managers or the UI UX product managers. over here in the API product manager, you have to work under the hood, where you have to see how your whole engine, your whole platform works. You need to know how an API is developed, how your API is being consumed, what are the underlying technical debt you have to address and able to scale. So also you will be becoming, an API evangelist. You talk about the customer experience and the developer experience. You have to understand the developers' pain points and their needs, how we can, make their journey smooth, so that they can do the integration with your platform in a sprint or less than a sprint uh, development cycle. And one thing is, I think one of the very important, I would say, the post launch. Once you have launched the product into the market, how you are taking that feedback and integrating or adding that feedback into your product. So having a you know an iteration of feedback, because any product gets mature with the feedback, and you have to listen to your customer, the users, and the developers, and then try to align your company's mission and the vision accordingly, like how you will integrate those requests and those enhancements or those changes in your product. Uh, so it's I've been using this kind of a toolkit. I would say it's few of the questions which I use whenever I'm building a new API or enhancing any API. So I always ask myself, who is the API customer? Who is the API consumer? What problem we are trying to solve for that API user? How this API will be solving that problem? Then we need to ask and talk about what task needs to be done to make that API usable for that consumer. Is it something very specific or custom to that user, or is it an industry requirement for that particular domain? So you have certain requirements in the aviation industry, it's different than in the mobility industry or in the financial industry. So every industry has their own requirements, and accordingly you play along how you curate or change those API requirements from very specific to one particular industry, or is it generic, or is it a common theme you're seeing. Then you obviously look at how APIs can help to do these tasks. You talk about how your APIs are enabling your partners. That means you're adding certain features, certain new kinds of data sets, new kinds of data fields in your product. So how this will enable them to do or to achieve the desired behavior they want to bring it onto their platform for their user base. And also there's one important aspect is about how you will monetize or create revenue from that API. And you have to think in a long run. It's not it's not a sprint. It's a marathon you have to run. So you have to see in a longer run whatever you're adding, how it will pay you off in the later years. So you have to think from the perspective of monetization and the revenue as well. And how we can market those API sets. You have to create a community around. You have to see how many people are visiting your APIs or API structures or API products. What kind of desires they have? Are they converting into the trial users or into a customer? What is the market? How market is reacting to different API products or different API standards, how we can improve our APIs during this process. Also, I think the last two points, the quality of the service and monitoring and analytics, these are very important for the API product manager. So maintaining a quality of service, that means there is no downtimes, less of error rates coming to the partner user, providing them uh, and enough tools to monitor their traffic. Also, you at the end of the you know, at the back end, or you're being as a API product manager, you have to monitor and do the analysis of what kind of analytics you care about, whether it's adoption or growth. So in monitoring, you always look at the downtime, consumption, or any security related endpoint locking or suspicious activity happening on your endpoints or not. So these are the different things you do during your API product management.
Mhm. So, sorry, I think
Yeah.
this looks awesome in terms of just a clarifying question. So, I think a major part of this toolkit seems to be sort of originating from understanding the needs of your consumers, right?
Yeah.
And I think a major part would go into research as to what they need. So, how would you go about that research? Would you like to
Mhm.
shed some light on it?
Sure. Yeah. Why not? So whenever a new user or your partner comes on board, they have certain requirements and their needs. You have to look at their infrastructure. What are their infrastructure capabilities? What are your infrastructure capabilities? Also, what problem you are trying to solve. It is not always what the user is asking. You have to do it. You have to understand their problem. Sometimes user come to you and they ask you a certain thing. Maybe I can give an example of one of our partner came on board. They had a very specific requirement about sharing some financial data, and our existing infrastructure, which we were exposing to them, didn't have that capacity or capability that time. So we had to understand what are their needs.
Mm-hmm.
If we add that particular financial thing, will it be sufficient for them, or is it going to add more complexity in our platform? Also, we have to think about if you're adding any particular financial object or financial array in your APIs, how we have to maintain the secrecy or the encryption or the security of the user payment processes. So you first go and try to understand the user need, then you
Mm-hmm.
have to look at their infrastructure, then you have to look what capabilities and capacity you have in your infrastructure, what things you can do, and will it be a generic change just a partner specific change. Once you understand that, and if it's something you can accommodate and make a change, you always try to wrap a generic sense or industry, or you try to put it in the different buckets of industry, whether this need will be come across your product life cycle within this industry or any other your user who is from the related industry. You have to
Mm-hmm.
look at that perspective as well. So once you've
Oh,
done that, then you go into the development cycle.
perfect. That was very comprehensive. Thank you.
No problem. um, so there's always a kind of a sometimes you will see, and I've heard and also experienced, sometimes there's a very fine line between the role of a API product manager and API developer. So I always use this kind of certain statements which help me to keep me in my area in the boundary, what I have to do and what an API developer needs to do. And over here, the API product manager is the one who understands and articulates the vision, user goal, needs, and the pain point. And so similarly, you are the one, the API product manager defines the documentation of the API contracts and the roadmap. You are the one who will be sitting with the partner teams, understanding the APIs, and signing a contract about, okay, these are the requests, these are the responses you will be expecting, what kind of exceptions, what kind of validations you will be providing. So all these kind of API contracts and road mapping, which particular part and how we will breaking this particular development into different pieces. So it's the responsibility of the API product manager to do it. Uh, Along with that, you have to connect the organization API program to the business value. You have to educate your API products. You have to tell about why APIs are important, why APIs or your product is what kind of business value it is adding to the company's vision, and how these API can drive more revenue for the business. It's not like if you have certain APIs, you will just one day you decide that I want to market this API product. It's not like that. You have to understand the business need of your business, the vision, and try to understand whether these APIs you have internally, if you expose it to the partners, what benefit it will bring to them. So you have to understand, and you have to understand the your organization goal, how you want to advocate for your API programs, and how you connect your API programs to the business value of your organization. Uh, Definitely, prioritizing the backlog, define the right KPIs, and prepare, partner presentations and help to launch different APIs. So when you are refining the backlog, what kind of work you want to do right now, then later you have to look at the industry and the partners, how different products are moving around, what is the product atmosphere, and define the KPIs, like what kind of KPIs you want to define about traffic scaling, throttling of the APIs, or traffic filtering, or rate limiting, or the metering of your APIs. So these are the different KPIs you think along when you are building a product or working on a new initiative. Uh, One, and I think one of the main and the important responsibility of a API product manager is to advocate for the developer experience. I think we in the in in the other side of the product management, I would say, which are like more user centric or more B2C, there's more focus towards the user experience or the customer experience. But when you're talking about API development, the first user of your product will be the developer experience.
Mhm.
And the API developers usually are the ones who build the actual product. They are the first consumers of your application. They plan, they design, and review the API contracts. Uh, few of the API matrices which we follow at points, and that includes, speed to the API, how much time we are taking from building, from the development to the hello world, which is the time to first time the partner calls your API. So that's the time speed of API, time to hello world, which we call it. And then we have speed to onboard, how quickly we are onboarding developers or the partners on our platform, duration of sign up, app approvals, and go live. These are the other different business or oriented API metrics goal, how quickly we are scaling in terms of the business onboarding. And then we talk about traffic growth, how we want to take into account of the API usage, reliability, and the latency. And also looking into your API quality, you look at the error rates, access, API restrictions, what kind of a traffic is coming on, and what kind of a quality you're providing. Are there any downtimes, or are there any certain changes in your traffic? So you monitor those things as well. Uh, so over the period of year, multiple things I've learned being a product manager, and I think there are three major lessons I've learned. The first is, from the API perspective, is don't make me think. Uh, when you are handing over your API documentation, user expects, or the developer expects, they have a visual hierarchy. They know how they wanna implement certain things in a certain way. Your documentation should have a visual hierarchy, conventions, naming conventions. If you have a certain fundamental concept which you want to explain to the users, which are unique to your business. You need to mention those in your documentation as well. The discoverability of content, or a certain or all the playbooks have that should have this discover ring, or the search feature where the user can go and discover whatever they are looking for. I took an example over here of a Reddit. So Reddit is a, everyone knows, it's a social news aggregation, content rating and discussion website. If you look at um, the documentation or the endpoint, or the URLs they are providing to the partners, it the developer knows exactly if they wanna use or consume the certain URLs. They know exactly what will be the other URL. They don't have to go back and look at the URL structure. It is concise, it is simple, and it is consistent throughout the documentation. So that is what a developer expect when they see in any documentation of API, playbooks, or your product. The second thing I've learned and is about the flavor of the API. The flavor of the API should be consistent throughout your API development, and that is, I would give an example of Attilio API, which is a very API centric company. So the flavor, they try to create or make all the APIs consistent with their validations, their error codes, the consumption, and any other concept of their product, which is need to know before you do the integration. So the developer over here, like they want an experience. They learn one part of your product or the documentation. They know exactly how to do the other products. For the PMs, the main interest is the integration needs to be quick. They want to do the integration or wrap up the integration in a sprint. Similarly, for the business users, they don't have to worry about all the time what will be the downtime, whether we need any maintenance work later on or not. The third and the last lesson which I've learned over the years is listen to your customer or not to listen to your customer. I've used a very famous, you know, the line of Henry Ford, that customers are like, we in general we always hear like customers are always right. Listen to your customer. Don't build anything without talking to the customers. But it's more nuance over here. Ford Henry said, like every, like if I've asked the people that what they want, they would have said faster horses. So that means like you have to listen to your uh, partner, your user, but try to understand their needs. Is the problem maybe is something else. It's what they're looking for, whether they need a certain new kind of API, whether you can add those requests in your existing API. So if you always listen to your customer, you will start adding all the requirements in your one API, and that will make your API bloated, heavy, and slow. So you don't want to go that part. Always listen to your customer, understand them, and try to create or bring up a solution.
Perfect. So one question time.
Yeah.
So the line seems to be very blurry here, and I do realize that this is one of those points where it really comes, your product management skills really come into play. So would that be a possibility if you could share an incident where they were asking you of something, but then you figured out that their real need was something very different than what they were initially asking for?
Yeah, sure. So we have been working with different partners, and one of the partner needed, the data of the users who were linking to the certain product. and they wanted us to share that data. So previously we have been doing it via SFTP file sharing service. So later on, we realized that they want to expand that and they want a real time thing. What they were expecting, not only just to share a file, a weekly file with them. These are the users who have linked their account with an airline. So what we took a path rather than building on or just keep on sharing that particular file on a weekly basis. We thought on like how we can improve and enhance the partner experience and the developer experience. So what we did, we developed the an API which started exposing the real-time data whenever the user links their account A with the account B. They will get a direct prompt about uh, this user had linked their account, rather than they have to wait for a week and then share the file, and then they will be rewarding those users points or any perks
Mhm.
they want to give. So the need was there. They just wanted the file. They didn't. They never pushed for having a real time experience. When we started giving them real time experience, it cut down their development effort rather than consuming a file, doing a manual bulk upload, which has its own problems, which has its own error chances. So while we converted into the API, that made their life easier rather than just keep on expanding that file, which was quite intense the for the database team, where they
Mhm.
have to run the script, get the file, share it on the SFTP, and then the partner will download it and use that file.
Sounds great.
So
Looks like it's a win-win.
these yeah, so these kinds of requests you have to understand like what is their need and how you can improve their experience.
Mhm.
Uh, yes. So the conclusion over here is we all are building products, awesome products. Always try to keep it simple, make the customer experience awesome, and don't do whatever is asked. Try to understand the problem and look at how you can go about that problem, rather than just following the request blindly. And don't keep doing things for the tradition, like this thing have been doing for last 5 years, 10 years. Try to bring a change in that tradition. Thank you.
All right. So I think at this point, we're going to open the floor for questions. We
Yes.
go ahead and share a link.
Yeah, I do see one question. What are the KPIs for quality service, like response time, authentication? Are they even considered as quality? So, in terms of quality KPIs, you have to look on. Sorry, we have a question. I do hear something. Oh, okay,
Good.
yeah, it was some background noise. No worries. So, for the quality, KPIs, you have to see what are the your quality standards within your company. That can be, how quickly you wanna maintain the error rates. You don't want the partner users ending on 400 errors all the time. Are there any consumption issue at the partner side? What kind of user experience you will be giving if the API quality is not really at par? You are facing downtimes, you are facing slow issues in the response time. uh, so there are multiple things. So if you look at the response time, how quickly you are responding to the user request, uh, in our perspective, where we have millions of transactions happening in a day, the response time matters, because the user is in a hurry to do an exchange of points, to earn the points, or to redeem those points. So response times are important, and then authentication is also important from the user perspective. When I am doing an SSO, or when I'm doing authentication for the any sign up, I want to get into the platform as soon as possible, or the website, to do my the task I'm here for.
Sounds good. Um, so I think we have.
Any other question?
How often do you write APIs being an API PM?
So, being a product manager, my main thing is, we try to work on the schema, on the structure of an API. I sit with the API architects. We talk about the requests, headers, and the responses. So what kind of response we should be expecting, what kind of a request we should be asking for the partner to call, and these kind of thing we do. I would say it's not on a daily basis, but uh, it depends on which part of the life cycle I'm working on in the development. So if it's a early stage, definitely we are looking at the APIs and talking about it, and writing those. We don't write APIs. We work on the schemas and the requests and the responses of an API.
I think that was very elaborate. Do you have any other questions? Sarim, I think we've already answered this one, right? What are the KPIs for quality?
Oh yes, and yes, this one I've talked about
Mhm.
Mohammed's question. Yeah.
Um, I'd like to go ahead with one of my questions. So, Sarim,
Sure.
what is your opinion on what characteristics sort of contribute to a good API product manager? Sort of in a nutshell, if you want to go down that line.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it depends on what kind of a company you're working in. In some companies, you are a lot of the time you're working on the research part. Sometimes you are working with your technical team. So in my opinion, I think having good research skills, understanding of your product, of your how your product technically works. Along with that, you know how to create a good developer experience. So if your developer experience isn't that great, people won't be, into your product, or in doing integrations with your platform. You need to have a smooth, simple, and to the point developer experience. You have to have, certain aspects of your product explained to the audience, to the users, and how you can make those experience valuable and delightful for the huge users. So research, technical knowledge of your product, and educating and talking about the developer experience. These are the three main skills or attributes, I would say, for our APM, for our API product manager. Sorry.
Correct. Um, so if When we talk about good developer experience, how do we go about measuring it? So like API documentation sites, do you like have like an MPS score? How do you go about
Yeah.
measuring that experience? Yeah.
So the maturity of any developer experience, it comes with time. Once you develop an API and you publish it and you give it to the partner, you start taking their feedback. Uh, you keep on iterating that process. You work on, you launch it, you get the feedback, and then you improve. So taking the feedback from the user is really important. What they are thinking about your product, what they are feeling about your product, how we can improve it, how we can enhance it. It's not necessary to have a written documentation. I've seen some products having a video or a multimedia based documentation as well, where they are teaching you or giving you a kind of a video. Um, you know how should I explain it? Like it's kind of a video based or audio based onboarding, and I've seen sometimes they have a personalized experience where you go and start answering their questions, and then
Mhm.
they tell us like, oh, okay, this is your requirement, and this is what they think will fit your requirement.
Sounds good. All
Uh,
right. So
I
I have
do
a question from
see
Tufel. Let me. So
the
Tufel
fun.
has a
Yeah,
question that says, how do you differentiate between being PM for user interface application and API PM? What are the
yeah.
challenges specific to an API PM?
I think for the API PM and the more consumer based product manager, I think the main fundamental difference is you get you need to know about your engine. You work under the hood, you see how your platform works, you understand the technicalities, you know the limitations of your platform or your APIs. You need to know how you want to address the technical debt and how you want to improve that. And you also assist your development team in building those APIs, in marketing those API, and you are the advocate of those APIs in your organization. So it's, I think the main key difference is what I have experienced in my career is if you're when I was the consumer product manager or B2C product manager, my focus was about understanding the product, how my product is being used by the user, less focus towards how it is being developed, what is under the platform, what's the and what's happening behind the scenes, what is in our backend, how does our data flows from one platform to other platform, how we are corresponding with the different services, how we can improve those services. So these are the two different I think for a product manager.
Sounds good.
I think there's one more question. How can a non-tech product manager transition being an API? Yeah, so like you don't need to have a computer science background or software engineering background. Uh, I think anyone can become an API product manager. The only thing required is you need to understand technical perspective or the technicalities of your backend. Just you have to develop that acumen for technical knowledge or technical skills that will complement you and help you to become a good API product manager.
Sounds about good. We have last few minutes remaining. Let's see if we have any further questions. If not, I think that's going to be a wrap. All right. So, do we have more questions? Not at this point, I think. All right. So, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, sounds good.
Hmm. Let's wait for a minute or two. If somebody
Sure.
more questions.
So while we are waiting for any more questions, uh, I think product management is one of the key thing, or a key skill in any organization, which help them to drive their businesses, the engagement, and get to know about the users. And like, it's an ongoing process. You learn about things, and I think in my experience, try to, once you have gained good experience, try to pick up a domain or a niche, whether you want to become an API product manager, platform product manager, data product manager. So try picking up a field that enhances your skill in that particular domain, and that goes a long way in my experience.
No, 100%, no doubt about that.
Yeah,
So I think let's wrap it up. We don't have any further questions.
yeah,
Sorry, on behalf of the Product Soch team and the product community, we all want to thank you very much for delivering such an
yeah.
insightful session. And I particularly loved how you went into details about what segregates an API product manager and the responsibilities that they have to overlook, such as security, data confidentiality, as well as compliance and regulation. I think those are some of those aspects that consumer facing product manager doesn't have to get their feet into. Um, Other than that, before we all leave, I would like to take this opportunity to make a couple of quick announcements. Our next sociology session will be about finding product market fit, featuring Shivi Shi, who is a product manager at LinkedIn Learning, happening on November 17th. So do keep your eyes open for that notification register so you do not miss out on a great speaker and a great topic. And finally, we have also been able to um, launch, sorry, launch our very own podcast called Sochcast. So if you haven't checked it out already, search for Product Soch on YouTube, and feel free to sort of tune in. Thanks again, Sarim. This was amazing. And with that, we'll conclude today's session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.